Oh, hey, look, I'm finally back. Yeah, sorry I've been away for a while. A lot of stuff in real life getting in the way. Uh, I had a lot of car trouble, just like so much car trouble you would not believe. Uh, my truck broke down. It died finally. So I had to buy a new vehicle, and then that one immediately broke down. So, so I had to buy a third vehicle, and I had that one for like a few weeks, and then it broke down. So I've been without a vehicle now for like almost a month, like 3 weeks. I haven't had any kind of vehicle, and life had been fairly difficult for me because of that. And a few days I just wasn't here at my house because it was easier to do things from my mom's house. And I didn't really see much point in getting started on opening those Turtles of Grayskull figures if I wasn't going to be able to do them all in one fell swoop. Uh, and then once I finally got my vehicle back, then we had a massive ice storm, and I wound up having to stay at a hotel for a night and a whole bunch of other stuff. And I worked an extra day this week, which means I did not get a day off. And man, I have just been beat. So yesterday, I slept pretty much all day until I finally had to go to work. And I really wanted to open up this guy. I've wanted to open up this guy for a while, but sometimes life gets in the way. And speaking of life getting in the way, I was going to start on Turtles of Grayskull, but I found this guy at Target for like $6, and I could not resist buying him for $6. I was not sure if I was even going to buy this figure in the first place because I don't even have the regular Spikor figure, let alone the sketchbook version of Spikor. But here it is, inspired by the original concept art, Spikor, untouchable master of evil combat. As opposed to heroic combat, I guess. Shouldn't just the evil, untouchable master of combat? I would think that would be, or evil master of untouchable combat. Like, I just think there's better ways to phrase that. Anyway, we see him on the back here fighting the concept art version of He-Man, the one that in modern day we tend to refer to as Vicron, but he's just referred to as He-Man on that packaging. So I guess He-Man he shall be. He is a He-Man anyway, if he's not, the He-Man. And this is based on a piece by Earl Norem, and the artist actually gives credit to Earl Norem. Down there you see it says Fetch after Earl Norem. This was, I believe, Little Golden Books cover. Lil Bane is here and says, "Hi, I haven't been here for a while." Well, neither have I, so that makes two of us. So, but yeah, it's been a minute since I've seen you, certainly. But I think I was gone for like over a week, which is a long time for me to go without opening up some action figures on YouTube. So I'm gonna open up an action figure on YouTube. But don't worry, I am gonna get onto those Turtles of Grayskull figures next. I've got 3 deluxe Turtles of Grayskull figures to open up that we've got coming up. So that's going to be my plan for that. But like with a lot of this concept sketchbook series, yeah, there is a movie about He-Man. In fact, I saw the trailer. It was awesome. And I can't wait for the new action figures. I mean, I literally can't wait for action figures based off this movie. So I decided to start making one. Here is so far my movie He-Man figure. Now, Mega Customs X made a bunch of parts to make the movie version of He-Man. If you've got a 3D printer, you can print them out, and you can see I've printed out the armor and the loincloth piece. Isn't it cool looking? And of course, this is just the 2000X head that's on here because I used the 2000X figure for the base. But I've got right now, I've got printing out the head of the actor Nicholas, whatever his name is. I don't know his last name. I can't pronounce his last name. It's some big long last name. So I promise I'll learn it at some point. But right now I don't know it. But it's pretty cool. Like I've had this. He made this sword a while back, the movie style power sword, and I love this power sword. This is probably my favorite power sword that I have to print out, actually. And it works really well just for everything. Like it works pretty well as like a comic book type He-Man sword or a animated type. Really, any kind of He-Man. I kind of feel like this sword works. It's kind of like the perfect point between the Alcala style power sword of the mini comics and the Filmation type of power sword. And in fact, oftentimes you see me show off the battle armor He-Man. That's the sword that I printed off for him. If you print it out at 110%, this is made for Origins figures, but if you print it out at 110%, it's the perfect size for Masterverse. So yeah, it's just a great sword to print out. I love this sword. So, but yeah, I printed out the armor last night before I went to sleep. I started printing it out, and it was ready for me this morning. And then I printed out the belt, the loincloth, whatever you want to call it. Printed it out while I was on my way doing some grocery shopping. Came back, did a little painting. Printed out in like brown filament. So I just had to paint the belt buckle and the actual breastplate part of it, and then the sword and the silver filament, which is really pretty. So yeah, I've got the head printing out right now, and I figure once I paint that up, that's gonna be I'll do a short on that so you guys can see how that turned out. But so far, this is what it looks like. If you can imagine a head that looks more like the actual actor instead of just the 2000X Classics or Origins, or yeah, the 2000X Origins figure. Do I have any 1/6 figure? Oh yeah, I got a bunch of 1/6 figures. I got like a lot of those cheap DC Comics ones that Mattel and Spin Master was making. I love those. And I've got the original vintage G.I. Joe Green Beret. That's one that I've got. I've got back when Sideshow figures were still affordable to me, back when before they were like hundreds of dollars a piece. Can you see them? Well, I've got some videos on some of those Spin Master figures and some of the Mattel figures on there. But I don't have a whole lot of them handy right now. I'd have to go and get them. The only one I have handy, I got a couple handy, is I got the this Justice League Wonder Woman figure, which that was the one that they had her repainted in the new 52 colors, which I wasn't too fond of the new 52, but I thought this was a nice looking figure anyway. And then this was one that was a custom that I took the BVS Lex Luthor figure, and honestly, this head turned out a little big, so I might try it again later. But I printed him out ahead so that he could have a, an unmasked head. But I might try to do a smaller version later. I don't know. So I thought I had Aquaman around here somewhere, but he might just be somewhere where I can't get to him right now. But there's some videos of me opening up some 12-inch figures. So anyway, where was I? Oh yeah, Spikor. So yeah, Bobby Wald is here, and he says, "Did you see the new Masters of the Universe movie figures?" Yes, I did. They're awesome. Can't wait to buy those. I did not see, however, the ones I saw were like Masterverse style. Of course, they're calling them like Masters of the Universe Chronicles now or something. I don't know. So I guess they decided now that we got a movie coming out, now's a good time to rebrand. But I did not see them doing any Origins style figures, which of course is what I really want. So I just made I'm making my own Origin style figures. I'll make all of them if I have to. If they don't make any Origin style movie figures, I'll make Man at Arms and Tila and Evelyn and Beastman and whoever else I have to make. A lot of people were talking about the movie, the trailer, and they were disappointed they didn't see Orko in it. But I'm pretty sure we'll see Orko in the final movie. I'm not too worried about them leaving out Orko. I think he's gonna be part of it. I would have liked to have seen a good look at the Sorceress. We don't really get a good look at the Sorceress, so I'm trying to open these boxes for whatever reason. I had a hard time with He-Man on the last episode too. I don't know if they're just using like a cheaper, pulpier cardboard, but I tore it when I was opening it. we should probably have a look at some of this artwork on the package. So here we see this looks a lot more like the head of the actual vintage figure of Spikor. And you do see that in a few images on here. But yeah, I don't think it comes with this extra head. Maybe they planned on having it come with an extra head at some point, but I don't see it in the package. Maybe it's just deep in there. Also, I should point out that the very original sketch of Man-at-Arms here fighting the original sketch of Beastman, the bear-like version of Beastman, the first one that Mark Taylor designed, but Mattel was too worried that he'd look a little too much like Chewbacca. And then this version of Man-at-Arms, who at this point was called Paladin, but yeah, he eventually became Man-at-Arms. And then the original design of the of Castle Grayskull at that time was called the Dwell of Souls. That was before Donald F. Glute came in and wrote the mini comics and gave a lot of the characters their names, and he came up with the name of Castle Grayskull. Yeah, so here is Spikor out of the package, and indeed there is not an extra head in here, unfortunately. It would have been nice to have an extra head, you know. Although I gotta say, I actually like this head a little bit better than the Spikor we remember. I almost didn't buy this guy, and I almost didn't buy him because I don't even have the regular Spikor. So I'm like, do I really want to have Spikor, like only the sketch version of Spikor, and not have the regular version of Spikor? If I'd have thought about it, I would have bought two of these guys when I saw them on sale for $6, and then I could have painted one of them purple. But whatever. Bobby Wald says, I hope in the movie that Adam walks into a Burger King and sees the mascot and screams, "Dad!" Yeah, that would be funny if they did that when he was a kid, especially since he comes to Earth as a kid, apparently. So here is Spikor's mace, and you can see it looks a lot different from the, even though he had a mace with the original figure, it looks a lot different from that mace, but it does have some kind of blunt spikes on each side of it. It's a 4-sided mace, so that's kind of interesting. We'll set that aside for now. And he has a tail, which the original Spikor figure did not have a tail. I'm guessing this is something that was left out probably for cost reasons. A lot of this version of Spikor, I figure, is different because of either cost reasons or it just wasn't feasible to do in the 1980s as far as, well, we'll get into more of that in a minute. And then the last accessory that he has is his trident. And I don't know for certain, because like I said, I don't have that, the regular Origins Spikor figure. But I'm pretty sure, I suspect that this trident is reused from that Origins Spikor figure. And it does not extend, unfortunately. You see it's like in there solid. And it's molded in like a translucent red plastic, at least on the actual trident part of it. And it's kind of flexy. Slightly flexy, and it's a little more rubbery than the rest of it, I think. And unfortunately, he does have the same problem that Spikor had in the original figure, where the trident has these balls on the end of it. It's blunted, a blunted trident, which is just completely pointless. And I'm guessing back in the 80s that was done for like, safety related reasons, since it was like a spring loaded thing. Maybe they didn't want to have a pointy spring loaded weapon. And, but they got no excuse for the modern version. I think the modern version, they should have made the trident pointy. And I'm disappointed that they didn't. So Spikor himself, I don't believe that this is the same armor that the actual the proper the default, the vintage style Spikor had. It seems a lot more pointy, which I like. By the way, going back to the Masters of the Universe trailer, how awesome did Spikor look in that trailer? Like, honestly. Like I said, I don't have the regular Origins of Spikor, and I never had Spikor as a kid. So I'm not somebody that, like, I'm not necessarily somebody who has, like, a lot of nostalgic attachment to the character. He's one of those that falls into that category of, like, I like him now, now that I've had some Spikor figures. Like I liked the Masterverse Spikor figure; he was pretty cool. I think that the vintage figure, I think that those balls on the trident just kind of bummed me out enough that I didn't want them. So I don't think I'm even going to put this on this version of Spikor. I'm kind of thinking this version of Spikor, he can just have two hands, and that's cool. And his main weapon can just be this mace, and then he can have this spiky tail, and that can be his main ways to attack. And there's a little hole in his trunks and a little peg on the. Oops, damned if I didn't like send his mace flying across the room. Well, I'll find it later. But yeah, it just pegs right in there. It pegs. There's a hole in his butt, and it pegs into his butthole. I don't know how else you want me to describe that. So, so you just peg into his butthole, and then he's got his tail. It's like, what are you doing to me here, Mattel? Come on. I know this ain't a show for kids, but come on. You make me say things like that. What the hell? I'm going to try to find his mace later, because I do want to have his mace for the thumbnail picture. But I'm not going to bother with the trident. Like, it just disappoints me that it's got those balls in the end. They're making me see balls and butthole and peg, and it's just a whole like pegging into his butthole. They just got me saying all this stuff, and it's horrible. This episode is just nasty. I'm sorry. Okay, so I really like this head sculpt, to change the subject. You can see that the spikes on his head are much longer, and you can see that his face, he's got like kind of a snout to him. Like the original Spikor had kind of a snout to it, but it was a lot less pronounced than this. This Spikor is a bit more porcine, more porcupine. But yeah, definitely more porcine in terms of like being like a pig, and more of a hedgehog with the spikes and everything. Maybe the reason they didn't want to put this version of Spikor in blue is because they didn't want to get sued by Sega for him looking too much like Sonic if they did that. Man, now I wish I'd gotten 3 of these. So one of them I could paint purple, and the other one I could paint blue, put some flesh-colored arms on him, and then we could have a Masters of the Universe version of Sonic the Hedgehog. Wouldn't that be fun? But yeah, I like the long spikes on there, which on both on the armor and especially on the head. I think that those just look really cool. And that's the sort of thing like I'm talking about, where it's like they would not have been able to do that with like 1980s action figure technology, but the molding has gotten like so fancy these days that they're able to give him these really long spikes, and he looks really cool. And then he's got these big hoop earrings, and you can see like he's got this harness. It's all sculpted onto the figure, but he's got this harness with like the black leather with studs on it. And man, it's like, this is just a filthy episode. I'm so sorry. He's basically wearing S&M gear, but oh man, but yeah, he's a cool looking figure, but you can see why they might have made some changes to him, as far as like maybe to make him a little more wholesome, a little less cruising as it was. But yeah, I really like the longer, pointier spikes. They're all over the figure. I like the tail. A lot of really cool details to them. I do think that they made the right decision with the original figure in going with purple, because it's a much more eye-catching kind of color. Here he's in kind of earth tones, and I kind of feel like he doesn't look quite as sinister as he would have looked if he was in purple. You know what I mean? Like, purple is a better villain color. Earth tones in He-Man, I kind of associate those more with the heroes. Like, He-Man, was dressed all in earth tones, like browns and grays and orange. And Man-at-Arms, again, brown and orange and, green. Kind of green isn't really an earth tone, but it's about as close to an earth tone as you can get. out of the main color wheel anyway. Uh, Tila, of course, white and gold. Like again, like that. Those earth tones are more like the heroes. Like Beastman was bright orange, and Merman was green and yellow, and Skeletor was blue and purple. Evelyn was yellow with a blue and purple costume. Faker was just He-Man, but in blue and orange and purple. And Trapjaw is just a whole garish, like freaking fuchsia and blue and neon green. And sure, some of the good guys had some garish costumes, and some of the bad guys were a little more muted. But I kind of feel like this is more the color scheme that I would see on a heroic warrior than an evil warrior. You know what I mean? So one thing that surprised me is that Spikor has all new forearms, which have these kind of squared off spike studs on the wrist bracers rather than the roundish studs that He-Man has. He's got the same boots as He-Man, which the original Spikor had that. The same trunks as He-Man. So, and then of course the upper arms and the all the legs are kind of stock Origins parts. So the head's new, and I think that maybe the torso might be the regular Spikor, and they just put different spikes over it. This seems to be a separate rubber piece from like the rest of the torso. And like I said, I don't have the regular Spikor figure, but it seems to me like that's how they would have done that, as like kind of a soft overlay over the regular figure too. So let's go ahead and talk about his articulation. Spikor can look up about that far, look down about that far, tilt his head kind of quickly from side to side, rotate the head all the way around across the arms, rotate all the way around the shoulders, and they are going to bump into these spikes when you move it around. That's just going to happen. Spikor's arms can raise up to the side about that far. He's got a single joint of articulation at the elbow, which bends about that far, and then that rotates all the way around, and then the wrists rotate all the way around, and they have a horizontal hinge on them that moves them back and forth like so. Spikor can rotate all the way around the waist, and then his tail can rotate all the way around. That's the only articulation it does, since, it doesn't have a ball on a socket or anything like that. It just pegs into his butthole. So anyway, Spikor can do I popped his leg off. Wow. I have never had a knee joint pop off that easily on a Masters of the Universe figure. Now, I've had to remove them before, for various reasons, but usually I have to heat them up a lot. I don't think this one was in here all the way. If you can look, can you see how there's a little bit of space there, and there's not so much space there? I think they just didn't have this leg in there all the way. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to pop it in. I might have to heat that up with a hairdryer later. It doesn't really matter. Let's get back to talking about the articulation. I'll just talk about it with this leg so it doesn't go falling off again. So Spikor can only kick up about that far and kick back about that far. These figures are really muscle bound. They're Masters of the Universe. So, that's just to be expected. He's got a single joint of articulation at the knee that bends in about that far, and then the knee rotates all the way around. And then he's got a boot cut, which rotates all the way around. And then the foot points down about that far, foot points up about that far, and the foot rotates all the way around where it meets the ankle. And he's got black boots. Man, that's another reason I probably should have bought more of this guy when I had the chance, because he's got a lot of good parts for customization. I don't think I thought too much about it at the time, because I was looking at, this torso can pretty much only be used for Spikor. And but there's still other good parts on here that could have been used. Man, that leg is gonna be really loose in there until I get. Am I gonna be able to get him to stand up? I at least wanted to get him to stand up for the thumbnail picture when I take that. Yeah, he stands up just fine. I could probably balance him with the tail too. Bobby Wald says, "Do you think they're gonna spring Orko on us like they did Baby Yoda in The Mandalorian, trying to keep it a surprise?" Oh, maybe. Come to think of it, those two are kind of visually similar, aren't they? Maybe that's what Orko looks like underneath his hat, because we never really saw his face. I know there's an official piece of artwork that was done behind the scenes at Filmation that shows what Orko really looked like, but they never actually showed it on the show, so I'm not accepting it as canon. So maybe he does look like Baby Yoda underneath that. Who knows? But yeah, like I'm sure we're gonna see Orko in the movie. I have no doubt we're gonna see Orko in the movie. I haven't seen Merman. Where's Merman? I want to see Merman in the movie. I'm disappointed that Merman, that we haven't seen him yet. We need to have Merman in the movie. Like, Merman is too important of a character to leave out. I'm sorry. You know, you might think me being such a big fan of Zodak that I would be disappointed that Zodak isn't in the movie, but I'm actually not. I'm actually fine with the lack of Zodak, and I'll explain why. Because Zodak is a character that, in my opinion, as I see Zodak, he's a character that is important enough and has enough going on with him that Zodak could just have his own movie. Like, you can make a whole movie where like Zodak is like the primary antagonist for whatever reason. Like, Skeletor obviously would still be in it, but Zodak would be the guy that like He-Man would have most of his conflict with. And it's not even because Zodak's a bad guy, because Zodak's not a bad guy. He is a neutral guy. But because like he has to keep the universe in balance or whatever, that brings him into conflict with He-Man. And it would be a really interesting antagonist for Masters of the Universe Part 2, would it not? And I know some of you are saying, well, wouldn't Hordak be? No. Save Hordak for Part 3. Huh? And then by Part 3, He-Man and Zodak have found a little bit of detente, and they are now allies, even though, like, obviously they don't see eye to eye on everything. They have enough common ground that they're able to work together. So, and then you have Zodak being teamed with the Heroic Warriors, and the big third part of the trilogy, because everything's trilogies nowadays. George Lucas, started all this shit in the movies with the Star Wars trilogy and then the prequel trilogy. But, of course, the original trilogy would have been Lord of the Rings, I think, in the books. But, of course, when those got made into a movie, then everybody wants to do trilogies. Then it's a Dark Knight trilogy and Avatar trilogy and, like what have you. Everything got to be a trilogy these days. So we have a Masters of the Universe trilogy. And then the third part would have She-Ra in it. A lot of cool stuff we could have. Bobby Wald says probably looks just like Lou Scheimer. Well, he sounded just like Lou Scheimer, didn't he? So I don't think that is too far out of line, honestly. So Spikor is a pretty cool figure, and I'm glad that I wound up picking him up because I'm pretty happy with how this figure turned out. He's not my most favorite Masters of the Universe figure, but he's definitely a cool one to have around in the background. Now, I think it would have been cooler if he was purple. And I know that the, Sketchbook series probably shouldn't be a purple figure because he was brown in the original designs. But, I would not mind, and I would buy this figure again, and I would buy it again at full price if they recolored this figure in purple. I would happily buy it again. Now, when I say full price, I mean like a regular Origins figure full price. Like, I want to say when they first put this guy out, he was a little bit more expensive, like maybe like $23 or something like that. So I thought he was kind of overpriced, and I think that's part of the reason why I kind of slept on him a little bit. I want to say that the concept art He-Man figure is a little more expensive too, but it's one of those things where it's like $19.99 instead of $17.99. So, I was kind of okay, fine, whatever. At least he's got an extra head, so that's a little bit of an incentive to buy him. But yeah, like I'm not using that trident thing with the balls at the end of it because that's stupid. But I am gonna find out what happened to his mace that went flying across my room. and that's going to be his main weapon. But yeah, he's pretty cool. I like this version of Spikor. I don't mind him being my only version of Spikor that I have in Origins, even though he's the wrong color, quote unquote, technically. Even though he's the correct color, he's not the color that I imagine Spikor should be. Anyway, that's it for Spikor. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Next episode, we're going to be back with some Turtles of Grayskull, and I'm going to go ahead and open up the Mouse Jaw figure. I got Trap Jaw hanging out around over here, so we can do a little comparison with the Filmation Trap Jaw, and I should probably dig out the original, the regular, the regular Origins Trap Jaw, dig him out, and we can discuss some of that. But anyway, make sure that you like and subscribe and all the fun YouTube stuff down below. YouTube likes it when I say like and subscribe, so I like to say like and subscribe. When I say like and subscribe, they push it out there further into the algorithm, and more people watch the video, and then more people hear me say like and subscribe, and then they like and subscribe. And that's something that YouTube likes because they like engagement. Leave a comment. YouTube likes comments. That's more engagement. But me personally, I like comments, so leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think about Spikor. I know a lot of people really like this guy, like the as a character. They like Spikor, and like I said, I was never really too into Spikor because I never had the original figure. But I do like this figure. I think this figure turned out nicely. And again, if they do one of these in purple, I'll buy another one. I'm just saying, just throwing that out there. So anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. We will talk to you next time. Bye.